I I kind of want to, just for the sake of time, like I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. There is like a lot of content here. You guys have access to this. Like you'll figure out what it means, but like you can't do this alone, is really what I'm getting at with these slides. Like you need to find the people who are naturally interested in this, and you need to like bring them in as like a focus group, talk to them about what you're trying to achieve, and give them the autonomy, give them the resources to become the builders in your organization. Like not everyone's going to be a builder. This is like the big takeaway I've had from like the Claude Code workshops that we've been putting on. A lot of people are there like I want to be using AI, but like I'm not really interested in like learning how to like build stuff. That's fine. Find the people in your organization that do, and if you don't have them, go externally and find them. And so this is just kind of a framework that I use for like if you're getting started in AI coding using a tool like Claude Code, these are sort of the 6 steps like that would cascade down to like building really, really useful stuff overall. Like you start with like a tool, like that add resizer tool was like a party trick. It's like, oh, cool, like you can, but like no one ever actually used it. Like it's not as if like my team is like using that all day long. It was interesting to learn how that worked and to know it was possible. So that was a really good experience for me, but like that's not like something that's like transforming our business. Um, Use AI coding to build a new website. Even if you don't need a website, build a website. That's one of the things that we do in the Claude Code sessions is just like find a fictional brand and build a website. You have to learn about what's capable here. A web app is sort of a mixture of a tool and a website. So like a web app, like this thing that we're looking at here, the AIleaderworkshop.com is technically a web app because there's like dynamic features. You can log in, it'll track, it'll pull information into a database. So that's sort of that next step. This isn't just like a static image as a website. A workflow is something that runs autonomously. So your daily digest email that like will tell you what's on your calendar today, or I mentioned earlier, like a blog agent that will post automatically to your website, like that's a workflow. Something that triggers when you have a client onboarding and it gets an email, workflows. Agents is when things get really interesting, which is when you start adding context about who you are, the kind of work that you do, and it can start to make decisions for you and help you solve problems more effectively. And then finally, a fully functioning platform that your entire team can use. That's when all this finally gets interesting. Um, you can't just jump in and go build a platform. It's going to stink. Like you have to take this progression to be able to get to the place you ultimately want to be if you want to build your own moat and really build something that your team can use. All right, Nechama, are you here? I'm like a half hour late as to when I told you I would be asking you to come on and talk about some of this stuff.
Yeah, I'm here.
Amazing. Um, Ben, few paid tools online. Love that. Okay. So Nechama is okay. Well, her title changes depending on what project we're working on, but she's like our director of analytics, but also like runs all of our like software development and like heads up our strategy department and does like a million different things for us. Um, I wanted to kind of ask her a couple questions about her experience in building a platform for us that she's been working on for almost a year. And sort of just like some of the things that she's learned along the way. And I already put this information in here. This like first that just like kind of kick things off. The best AI tools use very little AI. So like let me just kind of start with that. Nechama, what first of all, do you agree with this? I hope so. And then second, can you just like kind of talk about what this is and sort of just like explain the differences in the different kind of compute technology?
Yeah. So when you're building something with AI, the basic place that people start when they don't have a coding background is by telling the AI to essentially do everything, which makes sense because that's what we're doing when we're vibe coding. However, I think I've been doing like vibe coding for at least over a year now. And as I do it, you learn more and more is that just like anything else, like knowing some foundational stuff about what you're actually doing is going to be really helpful to avoiding issues. Um, and one of those things is that AI can do things and it's not going to do everything super well. And maybe they could continuously get a little better at things over time. But we want to use each system for what it's best at. So if you take a program that existed before AI was widespread and before we had access to all these LLMs, it was able to do some of these things that we spoke about, right? Like there's things that, Salesforce, HubSpot, all these things existed before AI was integrated into it. And so your best bet when you're trying to build is going to be essentially taking what all giving the stuff that was already able to be done and continuing to do that in that same way and then adding AI on top of it. So what do I mean by that? There's really two ways of looking at things. There's things that are deterministic, and then there's things that are more probabilistic. So things that are deterministic are going to be things that have a clear outcome. Like Patrick's holding up his calculator. A calculator is an awesome example because if we tell the LLM, and the models have been getting slightly better at this, but still, if you tell the LLM to just sum a bunch of numbers and not use any outside tools, typically it will do not a great job at that. So you're going to be like, that's so weird. LLMs are like literally doing what seems like magic. And then it can't sum, 50 plus 63 plus 75 plus 1900 plus whatever, like a couple of other things. And it's going to have a hard time with it. And it's weird. And also, the other thing about an LLM is that it tends to be very confident always. So it's going to confidently tell you the wrong answer there. And what's happening is that LLM is non deterministic, it's a probabilistic um, approach. And what it does is it's using pattern recognition, right? That's what LLMs do. They're called like a token predicting machine. It's taking all their context, and in this case, my context is those numbers that I want to add, and it's predicting the outcome. Now, predicting the outcome when you're doing a math equation, would you rather predict the outcome in a very advanced way, or would you rather just know the outcome? Because there's a very simple way of knowing the outcome, and calculators have been around for much longer. So we would say, in that case, you want to calculate the outcome, not predict it. So within our programs, and whatever you're building, anytime there's a way to do something in a deterministic fashion, we want to go in that direction. And then we want to layer the LLMs on top of it. So with what I've been building, it's an internal tool right now. It's called Sherpa, and it does a lot of the um, analysis and some of the account management stuff that we've been traditionally doing in our industry. And so there's an analysis part, and the LLM still built it for me because I don't know how to code. Well, I don't know a ton about coding without having an LLM assist me, but it's very clear that that has to happen in a deterministic way. So that's using Python in order to do those analyses. And then once those analyses are done, then it moves to the probabilistic way where the LLM comes in and now interprets those results for you and puts it in a way um, that's more user friendly and and sometimes goes back to the deterministic system and says, hey, I feel like you missed this, can you look up this other thing, which then the deterministic system will fill in, and they kind of have to work together. Versus I think at the beginning what we were doing is just telling it to do things, and sometimes that wasn't happening. So we would be like, oh, we gave it all the data, why is this answer wrong? Like, why is it just telling me data that's flat out wrong? And that's from this concept that we were just talking about.
Um, so about a year ago, and this is why, like, I had this, you really need to build up to this. A lot of people, I mean, at least in our industry, like suddenly became, oh, we have a platform that we're going to like sell. And they sort of worked on it over the weekend. And we know that there's not enough deterministic logic in the back end of the platform to actually make it reliable. which is a reason like we've been spending so much time building this thing that only really recently has become incredibly, really powerful for us. And by the way, one of the things that's really great about building your own platform is that you get much better at like sniffing out what other platforms are good and which are not. So that's ideal. But so about a year ago, Nechama came to Isaac and I and was like, we need to we need to build a database structure that like we own. Because if we want to build any sort of tools or anything on top of it to do like the kind of analysis that we want to be able to do for our clients, we can't be reliant on these other systems. It's like this kind of hypothesis about like where the probabilistic engines start to fail. Like she sort of knew this back then. And like you made it very clear, you're like, I don't know exactly what we're building or what we should be working toward. I just know that I need to start with the database and then we'll go from there. Um, Nahama, in that experience, like what, just in this idea of like, you didn't know what you were even working on, kind of like you knew what you were working on, but like you didn't know what you were working toward, but you were like, you knew it was the right call. Like, talk through like what that actually meant and how you ultimately figured out the direction that this platform needed to take.
Yeah, so I'd say I was working on a lot of analyses for clients at that point, and the pain point was that so much of the time was spent gathering the data and trying to format it and things. And so it became very clear that if we're going to be able to scale this, then the data had to be ready. And it had to be clean and it had to be coming in consistently, and we needed a good pipeline for that. So that's what became clear. And I knew that like scaling it would mean something on the analysis side. I was not thinking at all, I wouldn't say at all, but I was thinking much less about like automations and stuff. Like now it has the ability to execute changes for you and actually do a lot more. But that was something that I wasn't thinking about at that point. And then it really was kind of open-ended. Like I just know I need to do this first step, and then a lot of the stuff I've been doing anyways will be easier. And then who knows what comes from what comes next from there. And it's like kind of like, okay, I could think of like a million different things that we can build. So it started with like some small things on top of it. And then at the same time, I think we had a couple different things happen. One of them was that our reporting specialist left. So we needed to fill in a gap. And that's when Isaac was like, okay, like whatever you're doing, just kind of make some reporting now. So it's like, okay. And the other thing was that separate from anything that I was doing, um, Patrick and Spiros, another team member, started to put together like their vision of what was going to happen, and that was being built on Replit at the time. And I think it was super helpful because I'm not going to say it was my vision because it wasn't, but it was helpful because they were going much more in a like chat first direction, and I was going much more in a data first direction. And then we had the whole reporting thing that was happening at the same time. So there was all these like different directions that we were going in, and it made things complicated. But it also, like over time, I was realizing that there's things that if I didn't, have to build the reporting dashboard, and then something that we integrated into the reporting dashboard was a root cause analysis, because I was like, that would be a cool thing that I'd want on a dashboard. And like ultimately that's become the brains of the whole entire system. That's more like a chat first system. Like that's where we're moving with it, and then like more automation first. um but I think what was really helpful was having different people working on it, because as much as you give AI like the ability to be creative and give you different ideas and things, it's very validating. So it ends up saying a lot of things that are like in line with what it thinks about you. And just also the way I prompt it is naturally going to be biased. So having like different, three different things happen, I think were what brought it to where it is now. And like I don't know where it goes from here.
Yeah, I forgot some of those like little details along the way. It has been a very, very crazy couple of months. But so like you started working on this, and again, like it was kind of abstract, and like I didn't fully understand what you were actually doing. And again, this is like maybe I sound like a buffoon, or maybe and like Isaac was a part of this as well. So maybe we're both buffoons that we definitely didn't have any idea what like you were actually doing. But also like we trusted you and you had the conviction's the word, vindication, the conviction. You knew that you needed to go this route. So it was like, okay, like we're gonna clear all this other work off your plate. Like you're gonna go head first into this, and then like we just know that good things will happen. So you were sort of like off on your own doing this, and then separately we brought in Spiros. So like this was kind of a separate project where it was like we had known Spiros for a couple of years. He was a former client. He and I connected. He was like building some like automations and some like front end stuff for some of his clients. So we brought him on board to come work with us. So he and I were trying to, um, thank you, Dean. He and I were trying to build like essentially a chat bot for our team to use and like not really collaborating with Nechama on this at all. And the results were really bad. And like eventually Nechama sits, I don't know, 15 feet from me. I eventually knocked on her door and said, but like I'm having all this issues with this stuff I'm trying to build in Replit. And she was like, you fool, this is what I've been working on all along. You need a database first that you build on top of. So I was like, oh, of course, duh. So that was really we were able to sort of connect those two projects, and that was what really changed the game for us. And again, like what I'm talking about here is like a platform that our team now uses all day long to manage our client accounts. So like our actual, the core operating system of our company um, is this tool called Sherpa. Well, I actually don't know if I didn't put like I'll just bring it up here. This is like the homepage for it. The sweet new logo that was just designed last week. But this is our new operating system that our team goes into, and it doesn't hallucinate. It has a bunch of like really amazing like decision tree frameworks and analysis tools and functionalities that are very reliable and allow us to do things that we weren't previously able to do. Like as one example, Nechama is very talented at this, like building this stuff, right? But like her first skill is being a really thoughtful account strategist. And so she sees the world differently than most people see it. As an example, when she thinks about like what metrics are most important to look at to evaluate an e-commerce brand, it's usually a different set of instructions that somebody else would use. I'll just leave it at that. She was able to build that into Sherpa. So now when I log into it, I can see the data in the way that she would see it. And there have been other people in the team. Our colleague Ronnie built a whole separate section of Sherpa that shows a lot of the work that he does. And so other people have collaborated here. So now when I log into it, I don't just see the data in the way that I would see it. I see it through the eyes of all the most trusted, intelligent, wise people in my organization, all essentially working with me in real time that has been built into this platform. And so that is why like this whole kind of thing here, I talk about like find your builders. Like you can't do this alone. You need to find the people in your organization that you can rely on and give them the space and give them some sort of direction. And then eventually, even if you don't know what you're working toward, just keep collaborating and amazing things will happen. And I know that this isn't like the most practical story, um, but like this has been like the number one thing for us. I talk about it here. You need your champions. You know, Nechama would fit into this idea of like being exploratory, but then like other people where it's like, you know, I mentioned earlier someone that was like trying to expedite client onboarding. So like you find people, you get them, you give them access, you empower them, and then just keep collaborating, right? Like the hackathon stuff will help, but like this is where at the organizational level you sort of be intentional about it, and then at the team level is where you start to like really start to experiment and collaborate and figure out like the different kinds of tools, processes, and other things that will help you kind of layer up from there. Nechama, what other advice or insight do you have kind of as you reflect on what has transpired over the last year?
I mean, I think the main things are for our collaboration, like you said. And actually, I just heard an interesting story. I think it's true, but I definitely did not verify it. Where when OpenAI was building their models, then they had no front end product yet. Like this is before any of us knew what ChatGPT was or anything. They didn't have a product, but they knew they were building this thing. They believe in AI, etc. And didn't really know what to do next besides keep making these models better. So the CEO, I think, or the founder of Y Combinator has a thing that like if you don't know what to do, just make an API. So Sam Altman went away and he just said, okay, we're making an API. Like we don't know what the heck to do with this. So they made an API and um, then some companies started using it. And those were like some of like the really early chatbots. And they saw that one of the ways that people are using this through chatting, and that became their whole product, which kind of brought on like this huge AI revolution. And I think it's kind of like that same thing of like collaborating and also just seeing other people's feedback. Like we do have, I mean, not like intrusive, but we have usage analytics. Like I see them, I see what people are using and how they're using it. And like that's always something that helps like get feedback from other people. And then the third thing is really what I kind of said this before, but I believe it's stronger and stronger every day that you really need to understand foundations. So there's things to get you from level 0 to level 1. And then it's like, okay, like maybe that like deterministic framework was something that I knew very early on. And that was like, oh, this is definitely why this is happening. And that was helpful at that point. But like even at this point, after doing it for a long time and spending a very long time on these platforms. Just like recently, I've been getting into understanding the way AI, like how an AI frontier model is even made, like in a more advanced way. Because I would say my knowledge before was very, very limited, and it's still not going to be like I can make any of these, like, and that's not my goal. But as I've been doing that and understanding different things, it's like that's been getting unlocking like the next level. Like Patrick said before, like we don't really have some hallucinations happening. Like because that happens at a very specific level of the that happens at a very specific level. It's part of the harness, and there's certain things that you have to build into there. And Cloudco was not building that in by itself. So like I had once I learned this and I was like, okay, we need to do evals. Let's check out our harness. And it was like, oh, okay. And now it totally could build it. But the whole way that LLMs are working is based on these neural networks and it's vectorized. So, but that practically means is that sometimes without you explicitly saying some keyword that's gonna like cause it to think in a specific direction, like it doesn't fully know what to do still. So really having some like just understanding foundations has been, I think, the biggest thing that unlocks, the next level for me each time as I learn more.
I think this level of curiosity and like discipline and yeah, I guess like discipline to really understand this stuff is, as anyone could probably see, like a huge strength. And I also think that like it's rare and incredibly important and to some degree necessary in every organization. Like if you don't have someone like Nechama, it'll probably be valuable to go find somebody like that could, or maybe that's you. Maybe you can be that person. But at least a handful of us have tried to lean into. I mean, I can't speak in the way that she does about some of the stuff, but even like Isaac last week got stuck watching a 4 hour video. It was the Carpathy video, right? It was basically explaining like the very nuances of how like the earlier models work to the level of like, ChatGPT can't accurately tell you how many R's are in the word strawberry. And like by watching this 4 hour video, like Isaac can now tell you why. And like was trying to explain it to me, and I watched part of the video, and I'm gonna watch the whole video hopefully later this week. But like this level of like, oh, like I really am interested to find out how this technology really works and not just take it for granted. I think that's really important. I think like leaders in particular, if they want to lead from the front, have that mentality. And then, also like surround yourself with a few other people that like Isaac was so excited to come talk to me about like the strawberry thing. And that's really good, right? Like having that as part of your culture, if you can build that, will allow your entire company to move forward.
Yeah, and Isaac had shared that video, and it's awesome, and I would definitely recommend it if we, I mean, we'd probably find a link because it's kind of dense if it's like your introduction, but it happens to be like an amazing video.
Yeah. We'll include it when we send a follow-up email to everybody. Um, Thank you, Nechama. I think is there anything else? I always want to give you the opportunity to share some of your insight.
No, I mean, I think that's really the core of it. It's like all the stuff you could learn, but just just yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.